So, good evening. This is the meeting of the Town of Delafield Board of Appeals. It's 6:30 p.m. and I am going to call the meeting to order. Tonight, sitting on the board at my far right is Pat Frigo, Rose Sassage, Robert Sheedley, Anthony Arbusius. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Spot on.
Okay, good. And I am Nancy Bonnywell. Tonight we have two hearings, and I'm going to take the agenda a little bit out of order. We're going to have the approval of the minutes last, because I think we'd like to get to the public hearings first, and then we'll go from there. And these are two requests for variance, and there are certain criteria that must be met per Wisconsin statute. First one is the applicants must meet the burden of having some kind of unnecessary hardship, or the application of the ordinance would be burdensome on them, and it cannot be self-created or created by a prior owner. And we have to consider several things, such as what is the purpose of the regulation, what is the impact of the variance on the neighboring properties, what's the extent of the burden on the property owner, and of course we also need to consider are there any unique physical limitations of the property. That really is a big thing. It can't be anything economic, and there cannot be harm to the public by any variance granted. The first variance request is William and Catherine James. Their address is W283 N 3917 Yorkshire Trace, Pewaukee 53072. They have petitioned the Town of Delafield Board of Appeals for a variance from Section 1704-5HA2, actually A3A, correct? 3A, and they are in a rural home district. They are requesting a setback from the town code, which requires a 50-foot setback minimum from all other buildings and structures besides their personal residence. They want to construct I don't think it's a 2,320 square foot swimming pool. I think it's more like a 540 square foot pool with maybe 1,700 or so square feet of patio, but we'll get to that. I don't think it's going to be, the pool will be the size of someone's house. They have submitted the application, and with the estimated cost, and everything seems to be conforming except for the setback from the road. They are requesting a setback of 22 feet, which means they want to be 28 feet from the road, if I'm not mistaken. And has everyone had a chance to view the property? Everyone on the board? Okay, so you are familiar with that. And they have submitted a note dated February 19th, 2021, asking that they, for the variance to install a pool on next to their home. They want to preserve the existing environmental corridor and not remove mature trees that are in the back of the house. They do have an issue with the septic system, and the topography slopes are pretty significant. They can't push the pool closer to the side of the house because of the well. The well is fairly close to the house already. And then we have a plat of survey, a copy of a plat of survey, and then some renderings as to what the pool would look like. And I would ask either, well, let me see. Mr. Hendricks, did you want to say anything with regard to this, any kind of details, or should we let the applicants go first, and maybe you can add something after that?
I could have a couple comments.
Okay.
In the beginning here, that the required setback in this zoning district is 50 foot in a front yard setback. This is a corner lot, which we require 2 front yard setbacks. I think, and I just wanted to point out, I think that they're asking for a 30-foot offset, not a 28-foot offset, which a 30-foot offset would be the required side yard setback for this location.
So they want a 30-foot, not,
Not the 28. In the application on here, it said it was a 30-foot.
okay, what I'm looking at says, well, actually, 22-foot setback, that would be 28. Okay, but they want 30 feet, so they want to be,
They want to be 30 feet off of that particular lot line.
okay, so they, they want to be 30 feet from the road, basically.
Correct.
So a 20-foot setback.
Yes,
Okay,
that was my understanding from the previous application.
okay,
Yeah, there's some kind of conflicting information, so maybe they could clear that up.
okay, so it's either 22 or 28. Okay.
That's all I had, thank you.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, 22 or 20. Okay, thank you. Okay, are the Jameses here today? Would one of you like to give us a little bit more information on what you'd like to do? If you would, please go to the podium, because this is being recorded, and state your name and your address again, and then tell us a little bit more of what you want to do, and maybe how, what kind of issues that you have with regard to your lot.
I'm Catherine James, and you'd like our address for the record? W283N3917 Yorkshire Trace, Pewaukee mailing address, zip code 53072. First of all, we'd like to thank you for your time. We wanted to just clarify that the variance that we're asking for is for the left side of the house. The front of our house does face Old North Shore Road, and I know that you can enter our subdivision, and if you come in on a certain side, you would not necessarily see the front of our house. The next thing, as Nancy mentioned, is that we have a very challenging lot. Our back slopes down very steeply. And then there are mature trees out there that are part of the environmental corridor. That is the same for the right side of our home. It also slopes down very significantly, and that is the environmental corridor as well. The area that we're looking at for the pool has already been landscaped and manicured, so we're not in a situation of having to really disrupt the environment, and that is something that we would like to do, is to preserve the environment. We also think it would be a detriment to our home value as well as the value of our neighbors if we put the pool in the front yard, even though we could meet the setback if we did that. So that was, we really don't feel that that would be a good decision either. So that's really, in essence, I think, some of the challenges that we're facing on the lot. My husband, Bill, is going to talk a little bit about the landscaping, but we also wanted to say that we would be very happy to work with our neighbors. If our neighbors, wanted any adjustments on our landscaping plan, we would be very, open. We want to be good neighbors as well.
So I'm Bill James, same address that Kathy just mentioned. The intent for us with this is not to create a pool area that's visible to the street, to our neighbors. We also would want to enjoy some privacy, in a pool area. We've located the pool as close to the home as we can due to the well that you mentioned, which is very close to the house on that side. And our intent is to create landscaping screening. We have a plan submitted by Villani Landshapers Landscaping, which will provide trees, shrubs, and screening. We're planning to keep some of the existing trees that are already in place, which provides some screening to Yorkshire Trace already. And so there's no intent to remove some of the mature trees that we have already in place along that Yorkshire Trace line. So we're very interested in having an aesthetically pleasing area that's going to be, complementary to our home and won't be, obtrusive, or an open pool area that will be visible to the rest of the area.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. And
Well, I just have a few questions. Now, have you submitted the landscaping plan to the town at all? I mean, have your neighbors seen the plan? Do you have something that you can show us?
I had printed out the plan in the packets.
Oh, okay, this is it? So you plan to have the fence inside of your current trees that are along Yorkshire Trace?
Yes, you won't see the fence.
Okay, how far will the pool be from the road?
the plan.
I need some help on that. We sat down and kind of worked through it. I know that, I think the well setback is where the confusion came in on the couple of feet, but I believe, as Dave said, we can meet the 30-foot setback from the road. Oh, and that, I'm sorry, you're asking for like where the fence starts or the pool
Well, I was gonna ask, I
starts?
assume the fence is the outermost part, and that's gonna be 30 feet. Because you're asking now, it sounds like you're asking for a 20-foot setback, not a 22-foot setback.
The pool is 15 feet wide, and is the setback 13 feet from the house with the well?
The setback from the well or the pool? Except the pools have to be 10 feet away from the house.
It's, I think the plan right now is 11. Unfortunately, I don't have the plan copy.
I have to just call it up, I'm sorry.
I know we had worked on this together with her, and I thought, and maybe I'm adding confusion by saying a 30-foot.
Yeah, and I apologize.
I thought
It's
that's
just
what we had, but the information is correct on here, but we had talked about meeting the 30-foot setback, so I'm sorry if I entered some confusion.
Okay, we're talking about a 50-foot setback
Need the plan
requirement,
copy, Kathy.
and the applicants want a 20-foot setback, so they want 30 feet of relief, correct? Or do you want,
They want the 20-foot relief to be 30 feet.
okay, a 20-foot setback? No. They want a 30-foot setback
Yes,
and a variance for 20 feet.
yes.
Okay,
Thank you for helping on that.
Now, is that setback from the water or the concrete?
well, I think it's from the concrete.
That's what
Probably it's gonna be the fence.
the fence is around the concrete, it's
R-
not
right.
around the pool itself. So, where does your concrete begin and where does it end in relationship to your setback? Do you know what I'm saying? Where does the water begin?
It's 4 feet.
I know, it's just a square.
The required setback would be to the edge of the pool, not including the concrete.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so the,
that's why I
okay.
need
The
clarification
concrete
on
can enter into the setback. The setback is measured to the edge of the pool, and then the concrete is around there, as if it just was a patio that you could put anywhere on your property.
Right, so
Okay.
is it from the edge of the pool?
Yes,
So you're saying the setback from the edge of the pool is 30 feet.
That would be correct. And then that's the only thing that we would take into consideration is where the pool edge is located in relationship to the setback.
I don't know if it's helpful or you can see on your plans, but the width of the concrete on the Yorkshire Trace side from the pool edge is 4 feet before it would get to the landscaping. So it's not a wide area of concrete between the pool and the landscaping area.
Okay, so,
Where's the fence in relationship to the pool?
The fence in relationship to that 4 feet from the edge of the pool is where the concrete is, and it's approximately 18 inches from the edge of that concrete to the fence. On the other side of the fence will be the landscaping, which would be the Yorkshire Trace street side.
so the patio ends 26 feet from the road, and then the fence is how far from the concrete?
Approximately 5.5 feet. Well, excuse me,
From the pool.
18 inches from the, approximately 18 inches from the edge of the concrete. There's a 4-foot width between the water's edge and the end of the concrete. Okay, then there's landscape, the fence will be within the landscaping, but the fence is approximately 18 inches from the edge of the concrete.
Okay, so the fence is going to be 24.5 feet from the road.
Is there an issue with the fence?
We're just trying to get an idea
Yeah.
of what this is going to look like.
Yeah, the thing is, it'd be nice to have that drawn on here,
So,
dimensions.
so the road is not,
Okay, well, it probably isn't because the only thing that really relates to the variance itself is the pool, correct?
Right.
Mr. Hendricks, but
other page, Chris.
certainly,
Where's
it's
yours?
pretty close already, and I guess that's why we're just wondering. Okay,
You can have a
those are
copy
the
of that
only
application.
questions I have at this time. Anyone else have any questions with regard to the request for variance?
One thing I didn't ask when I was out there to talk to you, what is that continuation of the driveway with that circle? What was that, or,
Are you speaking to the front of the house, Bob?
well, I call it the back, the front is the one on the subdivision, or
On
on the
Yorkshire?
west side? What, that circle,
That's,
that's cement, that's a concrete.
yes, it's our driveway that takes you to the front of our house.
The front of our house, so when you enter off of Yorkshire Trace, there's a drive that goes right up to our garage,
You know,
okay? There is a lane then that goes towards the west,
west, right,
and that runs along to the front of the house, loops
Right.
around, there's a circular drive. It's got a landscaped area in front of it
right.
with essentially meets to the front of our house.
I brought the plans if you wanted to see the front of the house.
Well, I've got all the
I
pictures,
think we have,
I've got the pictures.
yeah, we were all
But,
there.
what I'm wondering about is why all that concrete was poured, you know? Doesn't seem like
It's,
Going
well,
here.
I'll give you, I think this is how it was designed, was that you could drive somebody to the front of the house and let them get in through the main front entrance of the house through a driveway. If they didn't put the concrete or the drive there, you'd have to walk through grass
okay,
and landscaping area. So they've positioned the house along Old North Shore as if that's the front. The side of the house, which faces Yorkshire Trace,
right,
is not the front of the house. Our address is Yorkshire Trace because our driveway comes off of Yorkshire. Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
yeah, it just seems that,
I lost this again. Oh, there it is.
it's a lot of concrete for,
well, I'm glad we didn't have to pay for that, so.
it seems like it was used for something.
Yeah, it really is very nice for when we, when people come over, we want them to come in through our front door.
Yeah,
The door on the side of the house that you saw goes into our laundry room.
gotcha.
Okay, any other questions?
And there's no concern over the percentage of the property that's being developed?
That will still have to be met. they'll still have to provide their calculations in the, A2 zoning district, they'll have to maintain 85% open space.
And any suspicion over whether that's gonna be,
I would think that they would be able to make that work.
I thought we had that done and approved the percentage.
I think it's 87.4% open space still, and I assume you helped with those calculations, Mr. Hendricks?
I think Tim and I, we worked on this together. so-
Okay, so probably the open space is not an issue. The only thing is the proximity to the road.
right?
Yeah, I do have the open space balance form, and we are good.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I would just like to make a statement that if this was to be approved, that we would be approving this with the 4-foot fence around the pool in what is technically a front yard where you're only allowed to have a 3-foot high fence.
Is a 4-foot fence required?
Yes, that
In
is
a pool?
required to have a pool.
Okay, so then they need a
42 inches.
variance for the fence as well?
It's not a variance for a fence, it's just I think it's a request to the planning commission, is that correct? I don't
Okay,
know.
the plan
Yeah, so
commission
the
would
plan-
have to approve a 4-foot fence? And if they don't, then there's no pool?
Essentially, if it's required for a pool, so they would have to come here, get the variance, then go to the planning commission where they can be granted a variance. It's probably a lot more difficult to get a variance from this body than the planning commission as far as fences go, but, yes, essentially that would be the process.
Okay,
So, 3-foot fence is required for backyard also? You said it was required for the front,
That is the maximum height of a fence that is allowed in the front yard.
right, but this isn't the front yard.
it is a front, it's on the street side, so it
is that
is,
considered a front or the back?
It's considered two front yards.
Two front yards?
Because it's on two streets.
So technically, the fence that's already there around the house, which is greater than 3 feet, exists now.
Oh, okay.
There's a wooden fence along Old North Shore. Parts of it may be 3, but parts of it may be 4. There's also concrete structures similar to other entrances on both across the street from us and elsewhere where you enter this Yorkshire Trace area where there already is an existing fence.
Are you utilizing that existing fence for your pool, or are you?
No, it doesn't connect to that area of the yard.
Okay, so you still will need to go to the planning commission for that.
So I think, is that probably something they did then as, when it was built?
Either it was already approved at some point, or they
Okay.
did it without the consent of the town.
Yeah, okay.
okay, thank you. So basically then, the 4-foot fence really isn't permitted as, with this plan, as planned. They would need another approval of the plan commission.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anyone in the audience, in the public, want to make any comment with regard to the proposed? Yes, okay. Could you please approach the podium, give your name and address? And probably the proximity to the applicant's home.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Kautzer. My wife Dawn is here. We live across the street at West 283, North 3920, Yorkshire Trace. We built there in 1999 when they developed the subdivision. I may shed some light on some of the questions here about why there was a circle built, but the primary concern I have is the location of the pool being in what is effectively a front yard to us as it faces us on the street. All due respect to, our new neighbors, and this is a heck of a way to meet you during a pandemic. I mean, that's the concern. Once the pool is in, I don't know if there's any rule or reason why it's not gonna get a dome over it, or some other larger structures like the slides or things that are gonna stick up above the landscaping, things like that. So that is a concern. And then the other concern would be, I think we've already maybe covered it, but a reasonable pool could be located in the west side of the property. It would require more disruption, taking up this circle concrete and potentially impacting some of the larger trees that are there, but they're not in the environmental corridor that's there. So those are the points I wanted to make. The circle that's there, the original owners, which were actually 4 owners back, Don Dupies, was a car enthusiast. He liked to put his cars out there, wax them, etc. So that's one of the reasons he had that circle poured. Other than that, you know, it's an interesting feature, I guess, on that property. It's, but it is a feature that, again, could be traded off for a pool location, and you wouldn't necessarily need a variance, or you could minimize the variance in that location. So those are the comments that I wanted to make, so. Oh, the fence, the subdivision was developed by Seatman, and that fence was there before anyone built on any of the 15 lots. So, and I don't know the exact height, but it's definitely over 3 feet.
You mean the fence that's there now?
Yes, yeah, and it's on each of the 4 corner lots. The subdivision forms a horseshoe, and yeah, it's present on each of the 4 corner lots.
Is there a protocol for being able to have dialogue here, or how would you, what's the protocol?
I'm sorry?
What's the protocol for responding to?
Oh, you'll get a chance. Okay,
That's all I had.
okay, thank you very much.
I
Thank you.
do
Oh,
have a
sure.
question, please. If I recall, and I may be wrong, but your house is very far from the road, is it not? You're not a 50-foot offset, you're more like 100 maybe?
We're about 90 feet, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, our back patio, we're gonna see this pool unless you really shield it. We have a 2nd floor patio. It's actually 1st floor, but we have an exposed basement. So, you know, it's gonna be elevated looking down on this. So we're not wild about the location. And we're very sympathetic to, you know, having you guys put a pool in. But, you know, just to be honest, we're not thrilled about that location.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Putzer?
Kautzer.
Putzer, sorry. Okay, thank you. And if you want to
you.
respond in a while, you'll have another chance. Okay, Mr. James, did you want to say something?
You asked earlier if we had shared these plans with our neighbors. We did. We offered to answer questions. So this is our opportunity here. But we were very willing and open to talk through any questions that our neighbors might have regarding these plans. Our plans aren't submitted with any other structure. The plans aren't submitted with a slide. We have no intent for that. It's a safety issue for us anyway. We're not interested in that, or diving boards. So there isn't any other intent here, and if we, would commit to that, I guess there's a concern that we might, violate our plans in the future and do something, but that's not our intent. As to the western side of the house, which is, again, the front of the house, and I would respect that I don't believe that you believe your driveway entrance off Yorkshire Trace is the front of your house, and I don't perceive it that way. But we wouldn't want to aesthetically harm the value of either anybody else's property or ours, which we think it would, if we put a pool in the front yard. And that, just doesn't seem to us like that's an ideal location. The other areas are topographically very challenged, and I think we'd have even greater issues with neighbors with regard to trying to strengthen, property or bring in fill and change the environmental landscape significantly to be able to make it work anyplace else. So I appreciate that someone thinks we could put a pool at the front of our house where our entrance is. That is not, something that we're interested in, and we're appealing for people to think about that. Certainly understand that our neighbors have, by the way, a beautiful home, beautiful landscaped home, and we have no interest in creating an eyesore for anybody, and our landscaping plan would be to insulate, our neighbors from that. And they also have existing landscaping between their home and Yorkshire Trace in that sight line from that area. So I do respect that while you're in your yard or somebody's driving by, that they're going to perceive there's something there. But our intent here is to create a significant enough landscaping barrier and quality that, would still be attractive to the eye. So,
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the public want to make any comment or have any questions for the applicants? Okay, well then I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion of the hearing.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Sheedley, second. Ms. Sassich, second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that carried unanimously. Now the public portion is closed, which means we may be able to open it up again, but there's really no more comments from the public, and this will just be a matter of discussion. Okay, anyone have any initial thoughts or comments on this?
I have a question in previous variance request
Yes.
for corner lots in a similar situation. What has the board decided in the past that anyone can recall?
We've had very, very few corner lot requests. I mean, I can't even remember one for the town. Can you, Mr. Sheebley? Bob's been on really a long time. I can't remember any. I know I'm also on the Board of Adjustment for Waukesha County, and we have had requests for variances there, and they've just pretty much held fast on that, even when it was a dead end on one of the streets.
So from the town standpoint, this would be almost a precedent-setting decision.
We don't set precedents on this. We are ad hoc. So every time a variance comes before us, we don't consider any other variances that have been, because really what we're doing is considering the uniqueness of each lot. So it really doesn't, we don't have any precedent. I mean, if we said yes to this, it wouldn't mean we'd ever give grant a variance because there was a corner lot there. So,
What does the county have to say about that?
I don't think the county's involved. You know, they only get involved if we're within 1,000 feet of the lake now or a navigable water. So, oh, you mean like what their ruling would be?
Yeah, if they have anything.
I don't think they have any say in this
Swimming
one though
pool.
at all. Oh, I don't think they have anything. I didn't look at that, to tell you the truth.
I didn't-
I've never had a swimming pool variance at the county
Nice.
since I've been there.
So what would be the rules as far as, let's say the owners after the fact wanted to put in a slide or pergola or some other additional structures within that area that we're talking about? Are there any ordinances or rules involved where approval is required for that, or is it at their discretion?
No, any actual structure, pergola, cabana, whatever you'd like to call it, would require a building permit and a zoning permit. But slides and things that are associated with the pool, diving boards, that's part of the pool. Structures that are placed on the property would require an additional building permit. And given that we've already don't meet the required setbacks for any structures, there would not be any structures permitted on there, because they wouldn't be able to meet the front yard setback without relief again.
And if I might add, if a variance were granted in this case, we could put conditions on that there would be no diving board, no slide, no other structure in there. So, you know, I think that would also be certainly something there.
One question I had when I asked them.
Oh, well, let's reopen then.
Okay. In regard to the pool, what is the construction of the pool? It's gonna be concrete poured in the ground?
Are you talking about like
The pool.
form itself, the pool
Yeah, how is the pool is gonna be, what did you say, 15 by 30 feet?
Correct.
Okay, how deep, and is it gonna be all concrete?
It's not a concrete pour down to form the pool itself. It will be excavated,
Yeah,
and then there will be a fill put around that in the shape of the form.
Right.
And there'll be
What's sort of a liner kind of thing?
there will be a liner, there will be like almost like a vermiculite absorbent underneath, then there'll be an then a liner form, which will then, the liner itself will go into. But it is not a concrete shell pool, like,
So it is not a
Correct,
concrete.
it's not, no.
it is not a concrete pool, no. The pool itself.
Our pool contractor is available, I can call him if you would like a more detailed explanation.
So in other words, it is not a permanent thing. I mean, it's like a rubber,
This would have a hole in the ground, I mean, this would be.
yeah, I know,
Yeah, but
you
you're
have
right,
a hole,
yeah, you don't have to dig
but-
the concrete, you could fill it in.
it would not be a
Right,
concrete pool.
Yeah, which do exist, and certainly it's not what most pool constructions are these days, but it's not a rigid structure underground, I guess the way to put it.
and it's not the fiberglass ones either.
So in other words, you could take it out anytime you want to.
Oh, no. No,
People
this is-
fill it in, they just fill it.
Yeah.
Right, if they,
Pull the liner out and
I think it's a structure. I mean, it's a structure, and, because, look, it's an $81,000 project. I mean, it's not something that they're just gonna pull out and do away with. I think we have to think of this in terms of permanency if they, put it in. That's for sure.
Is it defined as a permanent structure?
I think so. I mean, a structure definitely.
Absolutely, this is a very, very permanent structure that would be there. It wouldn't be able to be dismantled or taken apart and out of the ground and hauled away. It would have to be broken down and put back in the ground. And I believe that's a vermiculite that they spray on form the pool walls. They have a base on the bottom, and they spray it on the sides, and then they put their liner on there.
in other words, and then there'll be a pump and all the equipment to run the pool.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where is that gonna house?
Okay, that is on the,
it's on the east side of the pool, and it will also have landscaping around it. It's where the slope starts dropping, so it'd actually be less visible on the street side, because it's gonna be down a little bit lower than the pool itself.
so the steps egress to.
I think on the plan, there's the two little white circles. So if you have to look at the ones that, the pictures on the right side. And it's here. And you can see the trees are covering it there. I'm sorry. can
Oh,
you go
that's over
bigger?
here.
Yep, it's,
Okay.
yes, I know, I'm sorry, those.
Okay.
Does anyone else want to see it a little bit on my phone?
Sure.
Yeah.
This and
They're here, but they're down a little farther, and there's all trees covered there.
this is the house, and you're looking at it this way.
They're there,
It's the same thing, it's
Yeah,
just two
right.
different angles.
right there they are, and then those are the trees.
Okay, thank you. So you'll have the pumps underground and everything,
Here, and then
or not the pumps, the
piping.
the piping will be underground, yeah, I mean, that's a permanent structure.
What about the lighting? Is there any landscape lighting, or how extensive or bright is the light?
We do not have landscape lighting. First of all, there's existing landscape lighting along the existing tree line along the Yorkshire Trace. We don't utilize it, it's been turned off. We don't have that lighting on. If there is wiring and landscape which lights up the existing spruce trees and trees that are there from, I'll call it, more from the road up towards the house. The pool area itself, there's no other planned lighting other than a light within the pool, which would be underwater.
Mhm.
So we don't have any structured lighting, like night lights shining into the house, other than the existing lights that we have already on the outside of the house itself. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Answers the question.
Okay, I have a question, as long as we're open. Okay, I guess the question is, what's your hardship? I know that you've got topography issues, but do you need a pool to have reasonable use of your property?
We have 4 children. 2 of our children have special needs, and exercise and activity is extremely important for them. They have some other disabilities, but they have ADD, HD, and so we are we've always had, our former house had a pool, and it's just a great outlet for them to get out and exercise, and they're all swimmers.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay. Well, then I'll reclose the public portion of the hearing. And I think we can have further discussion, but would anyone want to make a motion or have further discussion at this point as to your feelings on this? Like the 20-foot setback, having the pool 30 feet from the road, having the fence even closer. Do you have any concerns? They certainly do have another place that the pool can be placed, not ideal, but, that's the way that this particular lot was set up. So there is an alternate location.
I will move that we give the variance.
Okay. And can you give us some reasons then?
Well, I think everything that they have said, and considering it's a corner lot, they're kind of in a situation where they don't have a backyard. And when I looked at it and seeing it on the photos with the trees completely enclosing it, it will be very, very little disruptive, I think, to the neighborhood.
Okay. Ms. Sassich moved to approve the variance. Is there a second on this?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Shibley seconded. Any further discussion on this?
I have one question.
Yes.
Do you know from the other gentleman left, do you know his issue seemed to be the neighbor, that he has an elevated deck? Do you have any sense of that?
That's a concern.
His concern was because of his elevated deck.
Those were the only times I heard his concerns, and he
Okay.
said them today. I had no other conversation with him.
I had a conversation with him, I believe they're installing an elevated deck, I don't think it's in yet. They had come and talked about that with Tim and myself, so that was their big concern, is they didn't wanna walk out on their deck to.
No.
No.
Okay,
Dan,
do you,
is this their property on this?
it
Here's
is,
their
it is,
property.
right across the
This is
street.
the one right here?
Yorkshire Trace, yes.
I'd be curious to know how far he's off the road.
Well, he said 90 feet.
90 feet?
90
From
feet.
the road, and then he would
So
be
he's
another 30
120 feet from the pool.
120
Yeah.
feet. Am I correct on that?
And the road.
And the road.
Oh, the
I
road
didn't
would be in
count
there
the
too,
road.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering,
150 feet.
if you, with regard to your, I think this is really close to the road, but with regard to a variance, I wonder if we do want to add, if you want to add to your motion, some restrictions on this, such as no other structures related.
Yes, please go ahead,
Okay,
add to it.
well, no, you have to do it, but let me tell you what I think, and you can say yay or nay. No slide, no diving board, no dome, no additional lighting around the pool, except of course there will be that internal lighting. And I'm just wondering, is there any, I should have asked this before, is there any restriction from the homeowners association on this? I think that there might be some restrictions on the homeowner, and I think certainly that would be something else to consider. I don't know, Mr. Green, did you look at that at all, or?
Yeah, I asked the applicant, they said that they were not in an HOA, yeah.
Oh, they aren't, oh, because the lots are so big,
Yeah.
okay.
Nancy, I agree with the restrictions to the motion, however, I would exclude the diving board.
I agree with that.
You don't want a diving board?
I don't want a diving board restriction,
Oh, you don't?
right?
Okay, so no slide, no dome, no exterior lighting around the pool?
I,
Well, I think that's a safety concern.
Yeah, what's the
Yeah.
depth of the pool? I mean, I guess that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
that-
diving board.
They
has
never answered that
restrictions
question.
yeah, it's,
I said, no,
Well, I know, you did ask it, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure you got an
I never
answer.
got an answer.
All right, let's open that up. What's the depth of your pool?
It's shallow on the ends, both sides, and then it goes down to about 8 feet in the middle.
Okay,
So you're right, not really diving board friendly.
We are not diving board friendly, no, it's more, for,
Volleyball and,
Yeah.
yep.
yeah.
okay. Well, okay, so leave out the diving board anyway, no slide, no dome. And then the lighting, you want more lighting?
I don't want that restriction on my
Okay,
motion, because the lighting can be discrete lighting showing that the pole is there, and I think it's more, could be a safety feature more so than anything. You know, it could be
Well-
discrete lighting, not some, you know, enormous
Things like
high
that.
lighting.
well, if you don't restrict it, they can pretty much put whatever they want. Mr. Hendricks, is there a,
For lighting,
yeah,
no, they would be able to install any type of lighting they would on their property right now.
mhm.
So,
I would have concern with the lighting.
I would too. I mean, that would make me opposed to this.
And
Well,
I
I'm
would have
pretty,
concern with, noise, with speakers, I mean, that's the nature of a pool, is to have, fun parties and, et cetera. So I would wanna minimize that as much as possible in respect to the neighbors and their concerns, and due to the fact it is so close to the road and close, I think, to the neighbor that was here, and I think that would be a concern. So I think some restriction in that regard, I would strongly recommend, if that's possible.
My sentiment on that is, if they were in variance, we wouldn't be controlling noise anyway. Noise is gonna carry, so it's not like we're creating buffers. If they're creating landscaping, which it appears that they intend to do, that should dampen the natural noise of the pool. I think beyond that, outside of I don't know, you could restrict to put floodlights facing the street, but, if you mount lights on the house, it will be facing the street. But there is something to the fact that this is a corner lot limiting, that they really would only have 2 backyards.
well, they do have another large portion of their lot to put the pool though, even though it isn't the most ideal. Actually, it would really be more hidden on the west side. And I know that's the quote-unquote front yard, but, that's the nature of it. I mean, this is a very large variance they're seeking. So I wouldn't know how to restrict the lighting, and you're right. I mean, no, you can't control the noise of a pool. You can't. Although, if it's on the west side, it would be quite a bit farther from the neighbors. All right, any further comments? I'm gonna call for a vote then. Okay, I'm gonna start with you, Ms. Sassich, since you made the motion.
I would, yes.
Approve.
Okay,
Mr. Shively?
Did we decide on a restriction?
Okay, well, all right, let's,
Yeah, what do
hang
we-
on.
what do
All
we
right,
got
we
on
said no slide.
Yeah.
Okay, a diving board is okay. And no dome.
Yeah.
And then the lighting, I think we're at a point that it really can't be controlled.
Well, you just say exterior lighting off a pole, so that would, light that thing. Now, they're gonna have lighting in the pool.
Yeah, in the pool is
That's
different.
right.
I mean, that really doesn't
We-
go that far. But I
Like a
think it,
parking lot light, we don't want that.
About only ground lighting?
Well, is ground lighting sufficient for protection in a pool situation?
Well, would the concern be that it'd be on a pole of a certain height or something?
Well, I think that does make a difference.
That's what you
Yeah,
see.
the height. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've never had a pool, so
I can't,
who has a pool? So they can, okay, you have a pool. What would be
I don't here, but in my former house, we had a
okay,
pool.
and for a minimum or a maximum height of lighting, what would you say would be sufficient for safety?
Well, to me, the safety lighting is basically the inner lighting in the pool where you see that it's lit, the water is lit.
Oh, well, that's okay. We're talking about exterior lights.
right,
There was no
it's gonna be
exterior
offensive to
lights.
them.
Okay,
But there's no
so,
restriction now against putting spotlights on that side of the house anyway, if they chose. They'd be free to do that within their use of their property, is that right?
That is correct.
So I think the lighting, we just have to hope for good judgment.
You can drop it.
okay. All right, then we won't have lighting. Okay, so we've got slide, dome, and that's it. Okay? All right, Ms. Sassich?
I approve.
Okay, Mr. Sheedley?
Approve.
Okay. Mr. Arbusius?
Approve.
Okay. Mr. Frigo?
Approved.
Okay, and I oppose. So congratulations. You are, we've got a few days to get the minutes out, a decision made and signed, and then you can start with your project. Okay?
And they'll still have to address the question of their fence, though.
Well, that's correct. With the plan commission.
Yeah, just call tomorrow. Yeah, we have a plan commission coming up on the 13th.
Now, anyone has the right to appeal within 30 days after the decision is signed. So if you start construction before that, appeal period has passed, then you do that at your own peril. Okay?
Describe how the appeal process works, would you be able to explain that?
Someone would have to file an appeal with the circuit court, appealing the decision.
And then the circuit court would make a decision, or would be a hearing, or?
No, it's usually yeah, there would be a hearing in the court. Yeah.
Can you say anything off the record with you folks? This is a really healthy process. I mean, we've looked at other communities where, and dealt with issues like this before, but this is a really healthy process. And I just respect that you folks have gone at this, really in the best interest of the community. And obviously, we have a favorable outcome for us at this point. I think it's very well done.
Okay, well, good luck and have fun in your pool this summer.
And be safe.
It's funny that, with all the houses around, and people have pools, that they wouldn't have some rules on what you have to do. Like you wanna build a boathouse, you got offsets to the lake and all this other.
I know,
You think you'd have some restrictions on a pool, wouldn't you?
that's true.
Huh?
Well, that's right, but I guess there were restrictions as far as where it is, and, we just granted them the variance.
Well, that's
And
good.
that's fine, I mean, we have reasonable people on the board and opinions differ, which I think is healthy. Okay, our next variance hearing is, by Ronald Nemchek. Am I pronouncing your name correct?
Roland Dimachek.
Roland Nemechek, sorry.
No problem.
At N47 W29111, County Junction, County Highway JK, and you are requesting a variance from Code Section 17045HB3, which is not a setback, but an offset provision from your side lot line to construct a 20 by 24-foot accessory structure. And what you want is a 20-foot variance to basically build the structure 10 feet from the lot line. The tax key number is DELT 0725 6-013. And has everyone had the chance to view this property? Okay. Okay, the Nemecheks have lived there for 36 years, and the property is also an A2, just as the last one was. We have a 3-acre lot. Lot width is 200 feet. We have, setbacks are all, I'm sorry, is that mine? Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. So everything else is fine and complying and conforming, but the offset variance from 30 feet to 10 feet. And you have submitted on March 11th the request for variance and set out your, basically your hardship and what the burden is, that you have, even though a fairly good-sized property of 3 acres, there's very little available building site, I think, which all of us have seen, because the topography is certainly something that will limit the buildable area. It only allows you 1/3 of an acre in the northwest corner of your lot to build. You want an additional garage in the southwest corner, but because of the side yards offset, 30 feet is unworkable, and there's no other location on the property. You want to, in years past, you were granted a 10-foot variance, I think in probably almost the exact location, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That was in 1991, that was 20 years ago.
30.
30, oh my God, 30 years ago. And, you know, times have changed, so we can't guarantee you the same result here. But why don't you just state your name for the record? I assume it's the same address as the request for variance, so you don't have to repeat that. And then really tell us what you want to do. Tell us if you intend to get rid of the shed that's currently there.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Roland Nemechek at the address that was already mentioned. And yes, we would like to construct a 20 by 24 foot, essentially a detached garage. As was described, we have very limited building space. In fact, when we built the home, we were only able to build a 2-car garage just because of the topography that's there. And to go back even further, if you saw the design of our house, we would have been pushed over the back of the cliff. It was always our intent to hopefully build another garage in the location that we have proposed. It is a little bit larger than the last time we applied for a variance, but we're essentially citing the same reasons. We were granted the variance, and we didn't build at that time. I did take out a building permit, but didn't proceed with the construction, so we're going through the process again. We wish there was another place to put the building, but there really isn't. We also think it would be consistent with the other houses that have been built there since we've moved in. Most homes have either a 3 or 4-car garage at this point, and given that size property, we feel that would be consistent with that trend. Also, I should note that I have spoken to the neighbors on both sides, and to my knowledge, they're in support of what I'm requesting here, especially my neighbor to the west, Mr. Bill Hussle. We've spoken repeatedly about this, and he understands the situation. Again, thank you for stopping out. I know I met a couple of you. My wife ran into a couple of others of you. You saw the hill that drops off there. It's just literally 20 feet from top to bottom. So that's essentially the nature of our request. We would like to make it consistent with the architecture of the house. We don't intend to use metal roofing or anything like that. We just want to have it be very consistent with how the house looks now. And the existing shed that's there, that's going away regardless. So we want to just finally get around to putting that building up. We're in a position to do that, and we'd like to obviously have your approval for that. Are there any questions?
I have one question. When would you remove the one that's there?
I could do it any time. I mean, I could do it. It's basically, that was there. I put it up as a temporary structure because we actually remodeled our garage. We finished off the space above that. We had a permit. It's in the record. We have a building permit for that, and that it was just a matter of cleaning out the garage and having a place to put some of the stuff that came out of that process. But that needs to go away, and I want it to go away. But I just kind of hope to dovetail the projects, make that go away, put this up, clean that whole corner up.
That would be one thing that I would be,
Oh, yeah,
want that you remove that thing and then put the new one up there.
yeah, absolutely.
That we don't end up with two.
No, well, they physically don't fit. You know, one would be in the way of the other, but that was never intended to be permanent. It's not on a footing. It's basically a roof on stilts is what it is. But no, that needs to disappear.
Okay.
Did the intent change going from 16 by 16 to 20 by 24? I mean, it's doubling the square footage. So like, I know it's been a long time since that initial variance was granted, but what is the?
At that time, you know, I viewed it more as like an accessory building just for lawn equipment, and I would like to be able to park another vehicle in there and perhaps a little workshop. And so it just, the 16 by 16 building doesn't house a vehicle, a third car. And so that's basically how I went from, from that building to essentially a two-car garage, a two-car size garage.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Novacek? So it seems that you really, basically you want more storage?
We'd like the ability to park a third vehicle. And then have, I'm in construction, I see a lot of 3- and 4-car garages. A lot of people, their third or fourth car stall is not with a car, it's full of garden equipment and toys and things like that, just to keep it all under roof. But it's, so I would like to park a vehicle in there, and like I said, I have perhaps a workshop, but all contained, and just have enough space to do that.
Okay. Would you park a boat in there? Did your wife mention a boat?
We don't have a boat. I have really no intention of getting a boat. I want less things to take.
Okay, then I was dreaming.
Well, I want less things to take care of, not more.
Okay. If you built it any smaller and pulled it off the lot line a little more, do you think it would still be workable for you?
We've talked about that, and basically 20 feet is kind of the minimum width that kind of makes it doable if you're going to put a vehicle and anything else in there. You know, it's not just the width of the car, it's being able to get in and out. And so, and actually, if you saw the stakes that I have, they are actually a little bit more than 10 feet off the lot line. You know, I'm asking for a 10-foot variance as being the maximum. I'm actually off. The front corner, I believe, is closer to 12, and the back corner is actually closer to 14, as it is staked out right now, if you saw the stakes that are out there.
Your stakes are what you want to build.
Correct.
It's not the old dimension.
Right. No, the stakes that I have in there is what I'm asking for. And again, the variance would allow me to go to 10 feet, but I'm really not going to be going to 10 feet.
So you could live with a 12-foot variance then?
A 12-foot I could live with, yes.
Well, you said minimum 12. I mean, the thing is, in granting a variance, we are to only grant the minimum relief necessary in order to give you reasonable use of the property. I mean,
Oh, I see. Right.
everybody, look, everyone wants more storage, you know? I mean,
Sure.
for the boats, for lawn equipment, for extra cars and everything. But, I mean, in a 20 by 24-foot garage is reasonable, but you are asking for, for us to cut off 2/3 of the offset, and there's a reason that there is the offset, you know, because to create space between the houses, to have open space, lighting and things like that. So if you can live with the 12-foot, okay, that's 2 more feet.
And, you know, if, put it this way, if I could get if that was the bottom line, I would take that. I would prefer the 10-foot, but right now, as I have it staked out, it's 11 foot 3 inches or something like that off the lot line. You know, so I guess that would be up to you. We didn't really want to get any closer to our existing home with the garage. There's not that much space between there now. So if,
Well, you've got that oak tree up in the back though, too.
well, that's actually one reason that the building would not be completely parallel with the lot line. We have to turn it a little bit, and actually our house is not parallel with the lot line. That's actually at an angle already, and we're kind of splitting the difference between the angle of the house versus the lot line and the garage being not parallel with the lot line and actually not totally parallel with the house, which helps us a little bit with that tree, because we would not want to see that tree be damaged. In fact, I'm trying to figure this out to do as little as possible around that tree.
Are you talking about the tree on the lot line or the other tree?
The tree that's a little bit off the lot line, the tree that's closest to the stake right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. I
Yeah.
think you're gonna be hard pressed to keep that alive with that garage going in there.
Well, and, you know, we actually had some experience with that when we built the house. That big oak tree that's right around our house, we built the house around that tree. We're very careful, and it has done very well. And that was 36 years ago, you know. But I understand, trees are very sensitive.
Especially the oak trees.
Yep,
So if you just built a little off, which would be acceptable to you, you might be doing your tree a favor as well.
and again, that back corner is already, because of the tilt of the garage, it's not at the 10 feet. It's already a little bit beyond that right now.
Okay. And, okay, I have to ask you what your hardship is. What is it, why do you really need this garage to have reasonable use of your property?
Again, I think if you look around, there was a house built just behind us right now, which is actually facing Capitol Drive. It was one of those rezoned lots that's actually in the village of Heartland. A small house that has a 3-car garage, and the garage is bigger than the house. You know, a 3-car or 4-car garage is becoming very common. And essentially the reason that I'm asking for the variance is simply because of the topography of the lot. I used the website and it was mentioned. We typically, out of a 3-acre lot, we only have that northwest third of an acre to build on. And we're trying to add that in there.
Okay, so it's the topography that really is your hardship.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because what everybody else does around you really doesn't count. But certainly, we all have seen your property, that's
Sure.
for sure. Any other questions for Mr. Nemetchek? Okay, well then I'll, did you have something, Mr. Arusias? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
Okay, and Mr. Arusias, second?
Second.
Okay, and all in favor? Aye. Okay, the public portion is closed. As you saw from the last hearing, we may open it up again and have just as many questions for you as we did this time. Any thoughts on this?
Anything from your perspective?
I think this is just a standard request for, you know, given the topography of the land. And I think the size of the garage, and just in my opinion, is that it's a minimal size for an accessory building, well within the limits if he wanted to go through the arduous task of building on the topography where he could build 1% of his lot line, of his acreage.
Mm-hmm. So it's, the size-wise you feel is,
I feel that's an appropriate size. It's not, that's barely a 2-car garage.
mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else? Okay, if no comments, I'll entertain a motion to, on this application for variance.
I'll move to grant the variance. And also that, the old existing building comes down and the new one goes up.
Okay. Do you want that existing building going down prior to construction?
Well,
It almost has to. I don't know how he'd get around it.
well, it'd be a lot easier,
Yeah, okay.
but I don't know if if he needs it there to, whatever he's got in there to keep it until, you know, you get something up to put the lawn garden and tractors in there. But I don't wanna get into a situation where we end up with two buildings there.
Do you have to give like a finishing permit or something, like occupancy permit for
Yeah,
the?
Absolutely, we do an occupancy permit, we can put that as just a condition on the
Okay,
building permit.
That's
why don't we
fine.
do that prior
fine.
to issuing the
That's
occupancy
all we-
permit?
That's all we need.
Okay, now are you doing the 10 feet he asked for, or he said he could live with 12?
I'd like to see if he can go to 12, go to
Okay.
12.
Okay, 12, then that's your
Yeah.
motion? Grant a variance at 12 feet from the lot line.
You said it was 11'3" currently?
You know, within a couple inches, I'm saying I could,
You could go to 12.
you know, can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead.
If we go to 12, that's, you know, I could certainly live with that. That would be as far as I could encroach to the lot line. If I would, I could come further off the lot line, right? That is, 12 would be the limit?
Yeah.
Am I understanding that right?
Oh, yes.
If I
Mhm.
end up at, I'm saying if I end up at 13, that's not a problem.
That's
No.
really not a problem.
Right,
No,
okay.
That's a good thing.
Right, and that's, I'm just clarifying that we're not locking in 12 feet
No.
as the absolute, you know, because,
No,
uh,
that's the maximum, that's the closest you can go to the lot line,
sure.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay, 12 feet.
so.
All right, is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion on this, one way or the other? And do you want to give any reasons for your motion? Like,
The topography of that land, there's no other place that you just
okay,
put it on stilts.
okay, any further discussion on the motion? Yea or nay? Okay, then I'll call for a vote. Mr. Shibley?
Yay.
Mrs. Essich?
Yes.
Mr. Frigo?
No,
Okay, Mr. Abusius?
No,
And I vote no as well. And so your motion the motion does not carry. And so, after the, order is signed, or the, well, I guess they're not minutes, the, order is signed, you would have 30 days to appeal our decision. Okay? And, I think you've got that, Mr. Potter, you've got that in the, Mr. Green in the office as to how to appeal, or don't you do that?
As an appeal, I mean, he can submit a document expressing his reasons for his appeal as a letter to the Board of Appeals.
Okay,
To the town board.
okay,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Would there be any result different if the request was for larger off the lot line?
Probably, but let me, poll the board members who voted nay. Mr. Frigo, I mean, what was your reason for voting no?
well, my concern was the lack of hardship in reality, and the size of the structure is relatively large. And seeing the first, just looking at the first, back in 90 or 91 when they granted that variance, I noticed that the structure was 16 by 16, and it doubled in square footage. And I understand the change of intent over a period of 30 years. I mean, that's normal too. But I thought that the size and the fact that there is definitely just a lack of a true hardship in this case for that structure. So,
Mr. Arbusios, do you have anything to add to help Mr. Nemechek?
it was the hardship portion that I did not see was met.
Okay. You know, I think that really is the case. to me, it was, we all want more storage. I mean, everyone does. And the fact that there are other, properties that have, larger garages really doesn't have a bearing here.
And if I were to revert to the original 1991 size, would that have a bearing on the outcome? It would certainly change our plans in terms of being able to store a vehicle in there. It changes the whole complexion of the request. However, I'm asking if that would affect the outcome, if we went back to the 16 by 16 size. Because it is a storage issue.
Mhm.
And as we think about reselling the property, 2-car garage versus 3-car, this is part of why we enlarged it to be able to store a car in there. A 16 by 16, that's difficult to do. I'm just wondering if there's any middle ground to allow us to maybe even have a, either the 16 by 16, which is too small for a car, or perhaps a 16 by 20, even a 16 by 20 deep, we could get a car in there. Just asking if any of that would sway some of the sentiment that's here.
If I could just.
Yes.
That would require a new variance request if you're doing a different size, and that would, not speaking for the board, but may change the entire process because they're gonna have different dimensions, they're gonna be looking at completely different things. I don't know if looking for an opinion on something that hasn't been brought to the board is relevant.
Well, obviously, I'm trying to get a feel for whether frankly, I'm disappointed, obviously, and I'm just wondering if there's any way to move forward with some kind of additional storage space. To have a 3-acre lot, and because of, you asked for the hardship, the lot is a hardship. And as far as being able to, have that, we certainly don't get anywhere near the open space requirements. We have all that land, but we just have that one corner that's buildable. And given the fact that we did get approval 30 years ago, I understand things have changed, but in that respect, you could say things have also changed in terms of what's considered normal today. Property that size with a 2-car garage is almost unusual.
Do you have 3 cars?
And not at this moment, we have a trailer there, we'd like to get that out of sight. And so it's part of, I'm just asking, is there a way that I could ask for just even a revote on what we've just had? Or is there a way to mitigate this at all?
Well, I think Mr.
Excuse me, is that structure that you have currently going to remain because you
No.
don't have another structure?
No, I don't. It's not going to remain. I want to take it down. It doesn't look good. It was temporary. It was always intended to be temporary. But obviously, I have things in there. I have yard equipment. And given, again.
So you have no choice but to keep that currently so it's covered.
Well, I have to get rid of that. I want to get rid of that.
But
And so if I get rid of it, which I will get rid of it, I'm just very locked in because of the topography. And therefore, even if I was to get the 16 by 16 original 1991 building, I would be happy with that at this point, just to be able to put something up and have some storage space. A 3-acre lot and be restricted in that corner. Is it a technical hardship? No, but given the environment and the area that we're in, I don't think it's out of place at all to be looking for a 3rd stall type garage for that size building. Is it inappropriate for me to ask for a revote?
The only way yes, no, yes and no. The only people who could have a revote would be one of the persons who voted in the negative to ask for a reconsideration. And I think we're just not going to do that at this point in time. Normally what happens would be that you would come to the board again, ask for a reconsideration. I think, Mr. Green, isn't that part of our, or am I getting the county confused, county rules confused with the town rules, to ask
He
for
could ask
reconsideration?
reconsideration, but he would be asking for the same thing.
Yes.
So if he came forward and asked for different variants, then it would just be a different variance altogether.
Yeah,
that he
okay.
came forward for.
You know, to tell you the truth, I think we're done for tonight on this. We really are. We voted and that's it. I think that really is it for tonight.
So if I just ask the three of you that voted nay to reconsider right now, would any of you be inclined to vote the other way?
Could I just ask one more question that's
Sure.
confusing to me? You have the equipment currently under that shed or whatever you want to
Right.
call it. What are you going to do with that now?
Well,
Where are you going to place it on your property?
I don't know that I can. I
So
mean,
what does that mean?
that means I might need a storage unit or something like that off-site, but I want that structure gone, and I'm trying to clean that up
So-
and, you know,
The off-site storage unit is going to cost you money, right?
well, sure.
So in other words, that's a hardship.
No, no.
It is not?
And no, we can't consider, any financial issues related to this. You know,
So it's really just, I really felt that this was an appropriate structure that would be consistent with the kind of neighborhood and subdivision or area we've lived in for 36 years. And I am asking for a reconsideration of those of you that have voted no. And if that means we change the size of the building right here and now and reduce it, I would be okay with it.
okay, let me ask this. If, for example, we went down to a 16 by 16 and you moved it over, let's see, what were we talking about? And there's no guarantee here.
Sure.
Here, let me get my glasses on.
Nancy, can we change the motion? We voted on that motion. If one of us was to make another motion, could we vote on the second motion?
Well, I think you can, yes.
According to, you know,
Yeah, you can make another motion.
because we voted on this motion, we can make another motion that
14 feet.
it be approved 16 by 16.
Well, I think the question is the offset. Because the size of the garage really isn't the issue, it's the offset. So would you make a motion to grant a different offset?
I don't know what that good that would do. It's the topography of the land where you don't have any place to go with it. You've gotta be that close to the lot line.
Well, I
And
think,
he's got the approval of the neighbor to put it there. So what are you gaining?
well, I think for example, if it were 12 and you cut it down to a 16 by 16, then you've got 4 extra feet. So then it would be you could grant a variance for 16 feet from the lot line. And then you're at 20, and then you're at a 14-foot
The
variance.
thing is, I don't know what is that present shack, what is the dimension of that right now?
I don't know.
Oh, that's about 18 by 18. Depending on just the roof area of that. You know, there's that carport area and then that little
Yeah, I
enclosure.
never looked at that
Right.
close, I just,
And, I appreciate the effort, and if it was, even if it was let's say a 15-foot setback, and I was able to put a 16-foot building on there, or I would really, here's the thing about a 20-foot wide building, it allows you to put a double overhead door in. Anything smaller than that, you really can't, But, if I went to a 16-foot wide by 20-foot deep, but then was off 15 feet off the lot line. So I'm increasing the distance off the lot line. The width from the road would be reduced by 4 feet to 16 feet, and I'm actually reducing the depth from 24 to 20. So now in a 16 by 20, that's only a 320 square foot building. And then I'm not doubling the size of you know, I didn't even do the math of going from the 16 to 16 to 20 by 24, that's doubling the size, the square footage. I take your word for it. But if we kept that road facing dimension the same at 16 and made it 20 foot deep, again, my neighbor has no problem with what I'm asking for. And he'd be the one that's most effective.
Well, your neighbor may not live there forever either. You know, it might be someone else.
I don't think it's, I think for my own edification is why isn't the topography a hardship when there's no other place to place the building?
It is.
Why doesn't that
It
count,
is.
why doesn't that count as a hardship?
It is a hardship.
The topography of the land limits the location to be able to place this building with reasonable construction methods. And that's just my.
Okay, how much storage does someone need, though? Is there a hardship? I mean, does he have reasonable use without that new garage? Probably. That's the question.
But Nancy, he has items that need to be placed. If
Everyone
he
needs,
chooses, here's the point, if he chooses, he can leave those items on his lawn.
everyone needs more storage.
No, but he could leave those on his lawn,
Mm-hmm.
and they're an eyesore. You know, he can leave his trailer, he can leave all of that on his lawn. I don't think there's a prohibition against him putting that on his lawn. He doesn't have to get storage space, he can just leave it there. He can leave that the way it is. And the way I view it, to me, that's more of an eyesore than putting another building where that's all enclosed and would be more aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood. Because if I was a neighbor, I would prefer to have a building rather than have all of that the way it is now. To me, that's an eyesore.
If I could suggest going to a 15-foot setback and going to a 16 wide by 20 foot deep, that would be, I feel, somewhat of a compromise. It would certainly eliminate my ability to, say, put even a decent-sized vehicle in there, but it would create essentially an accessory building. I would prefer the 24 by 20, but I'm asking if we could perhaps submit a different motion that this board would be willing to approve.
I would move to reconsider based on, I found you very convincing.
Or,
Would you reconsider based on 16-foot offset?
I think at that point, 3 feet, 4 feet. You know, my original vote was, I didn't see the hardship because you kept referring to the marketability of the home,
I see.
right? It's the marketability of the home, the marketability of the home. To me, that's not a hardship. That's an investment.
Right.
But based on how you've been using the property and based on the points made by my colleague over here, I'll reconsider my vote to that, to improve the neighborhood.
I think lack of storage is, to me, is not convincing. However, if you would be amenable to a 16-foot offset, I think that gives, I think that's minimal relief to grant you, minimum amount to grant you relief. Yes, you do have small space, but to tell you the truth, cutting down the offset by 2/3 is just too much. And to me, I know neighbors don't object, but that's not a reason to grant a variance either. Those neighbors might not be there. So I would think if you, maybe Ms. Sasich, if you want to make another motion with a 16-foot offset.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Are we saying 15 or 16? Because at this point, 16 really pushes me to the house, the existing home. And if I could ask for the variance to be cut in half, essentially from 30 to 15 feet, and a 16 by 20, if we could do that and reconsider that vote, I could really live with that, and I would really appreciate that.
Okay, 15.
I would
And
like to
let's
make a
close the
motion.
public portion, please.
I would
Okay, it's closed.
I'll withdraw my motion,
Okay, or someone, make
Go
it,
ahead,
and
Rose.
make another motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna state it correctly, but I'd like to make a motion with the 15-foot variance with a building of 20 by 16 feet. Is that correct?
You know, I think we don't really need the dimensions of his
Just the
project.
You need the offset.
All we need is the 15-foot
I make a
offset.
motion of the 15-foot offset,
And based on the topography of
based
the,
on hardship of the topography.
okay. All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion, either in favor or not?
I vote yes.
Okay, wait,
Yes.
I haven't called for a vote
Oh,
yet.
sorry.
Okay,
No more discussion.
okay, all right. Ms. Sasich? Vote,
A,
okay,
Yay.
okay.
Yay.
Mr. Frigo?
No.
Okay, and I'll vote yes. Okay,
Thank you very
okay.
much.
You'll have a decision in a few days, and then you can start with your project.
I appreciate your willingness to reconsider.
And if anyone, your neighbors have 30 days in which to file an appeal to the decision after it's filed with the town. And so if you start the project before that, you do so at your own peril.
I understand.
Okay, all right. I'll entertain a motion to, well, any further discussion with Mr. Hendricks or Mr. Green before I entertain a motion to close the hearing today? Because I know this is a new, for Mr. Frigo and Mr. Arbusias.
Do we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
that's-
how could I
was
forget
just gonna
that?
Bring that up.
Thank you very much. I moved it away. We're done. Thank you.
I just have a point of clarification. So the variance was granted to just go to 15 feet. That's the decision that was made here tonight.
Correct.
Am I understanding that
Yes.
correctly?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you folks for your time. I know you do this in your spare time.
Okay, we have the minutes of June 29, and, thank you very much. Here I'm, and, well, Mr. Frigo and Mr. Arbusias, you cannot vote on this because you weren't here. Well, you were here, but
I was
not,
here, but not on the
not on the meeting. After reviewing the minutes, are there any additions or corrections? Okay, then a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, a second?
second,
Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved unanimously by the three of us. And then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the hearing today. Or did you have any questions for Mr. Green or Mr. Hendricks? Any other comments? No? Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good meeting.
See you later. Do you have a meeting with